Chapter 5. The vengeance of innocent blood. As for me, behold, I am in your hand. Do with me as seemeth good and meet unto you. But know ye for certain, that if ye put me to death, ye shall surely bring innocent blood upon yourselves, and upon this city, and upon the inhabitants thereof. For of a truth the Lord hath sent me unto you to speak all these words in your ears. Jer. 26:14-15. When innocent blood is shed, it is called murder. But, when the wicked have their blood shed, it is called an execution. A person guilty of a capital crime should receive capital punishment, then justice has been served. However, if an innocent person is murdered, then, according to the Scriptures, his blood cries from the ground for vengeance. When innocent blood is spilled, retribution must be made, for justice has been robbed and demands satisfaction. According to the Scriptures, every innocent man who has been murdered has blood that cries from the ground for vengeance. That blood remains in a constant appeal to God for justice, and the promise is that it will be reconciled somewhere in the eternal scales of justice. In every instance of an innocent victim who dies by the hand of a murderer, a just compensation must be met by the murderer. This justice may come in the form of an execution, war, persecution, or pestilence, but until that justice is met, their blood cries to the Lord for vengeance. Consider the following Scriptures. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel, thy brother? And he said, I know not, am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. Gen. 4:9-10. Rejoice, O ye nations, with his the Lord's people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land, and to his people. Deut. 32:43. The Book of Mormon also described this vengeance that must eventually come upon those who shed innocent blood. Behold, the sword of vengeance hangeth over you, and the time soon cometh that he avengeth the blood of the saints upon you, for he will not suffer their cries any longer. Mormon 8:41. For behold, they murdered all the prophet of the Lord who came among them to declare unto them concerning their iniquities, and the blood of those whom they murdered did cry unto the Lord their God for vengeance upon those who were their murderers, and thus the judgments of God did come upon these workers of darkness and secret combinations. Alma 37:30. And now, my beloved brethren, for ye ought to be beloved, yea, and ye ought to have stirred yourselves more diligently for the welfare and the freedom of this people. But behold, ye have neglected them insomuch that the blood of thousands shall come upon your heads for vengeance, yea, for known unto God were all their cries, and all their sufferings. Alma 60:10. And again, it is expedient that thou shouldst forbear, for if thou shouldst slay thy son, he being an innocent man, his blood would cry from the ground to the Lord his God, for vengeance to come upon thee, and perhaps thou wouldst lose thy soul. Alma 20:13. And thou hast shed the blood of a righteous man, yea, a man who has done much good among this people, and were we to spare thee, his blood would come upon us for vengeance. Therefore, thou art condemned to die, according to the law which has been given us by Messiah, our last King, and it has been acknowledged by this people, therefore, this people must abide by the law. Alma 1:13-16. The question may arise as to just what innocent blood means, or to whom it refers. Is it a person who is innocent of any crime that would demand capital punishment? Is it a person who has been baptized and is considered spiritually innocent? Or is it a person who has received higher ordinances in a temple and been washed clean, and is innocent of the blood of that generation? Can a child or a baby be considered someone who has innocent blood? In trying to answer these questions, the following information should be considered. Abortion has been considered a form of murder by some, to others, it is only a legal means of birth control. Some organizations regard it as a wise measure to prevent the mistake of overpopulation, or for a rightful measure of women's liberation. In some instances, it is an excuse for material gain and prosperity. In the Soviet Union, tens of thousands of women pay 5 rubles, about $6, for an abortion. One Russian mother claimed that she didn't know of any woman who had not had an abortion. In this country, the Supreme Court, members of the medical profession, and most of the citizens are claiming that abortion is legal and moral, and this from a people that consider themselves a Christian nation. In the state of New York, there are more abortions than there are babies who are allowed to be born. Civil law is not opposed to the measures which prevent pregnancies, yet people demand legislators, doctors, and hospitals to correct their own childbearing mistakes. It was Pharaoh and Herod that killed all the male babies under 2 years of age, and it was considered a horrible and unspeakable crime. Yet, in our own country each year we are killing little boys and girls by millions more than Pharaoh or Herod ever did. The same Supreme Court that has legalized baby abortion has also ruled against capital punishment for murderers. They consider capital punishment as cruel and unusual for a murderer, but it is considered legal and moral if a baby is given capital punishment. But what is the baby guilty of? The legal system in this country kills babies with national approval, but protects murderers from a similar fate. But executing a murderer, who is destroying society, is not unusual, neither is an execution cruel which occurs in a split second. The Supreme Court approves of the death or execution of babies, and that kind of butchery is not considered cruel or unusual. Such reversals in legislation not only raise the question of morality, but of sanity. Our nation is killing the innocent and protecting the guilty. We have become a corrupt nation, offering human sacrifices to the false gods of overpopulation, women's liberation and wealth. How much longer will the innocent blood of these babies cry for vengeance upon this nation before retribution is made? It cannot become much worse to be as bad as it was in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, or as Noah saw the world. But to affirm more substantially what the Lord has said about shedding innocent blood, we read that it is often a means of condemning the wicked. For the Lord suffereth the righteous to be slain, that his justice and judgment may come upon the wicked. Therefore ye need not suppose that the righteous are lost because they are slain, but behold, they do enter unto the rest of the Lord their God. Alma 60:13. He shall spare the poor and needy, and shall save the souls of the needy. He shall redeem their soul from deceit and violence, and precious shall their blood be in his sight. Psalm 72:13. Sometimes innocent women and children become witnesses by shedding their own blood. From the Book of Mormon came a very vivid description of just such an event. And when Amulek saw the pains of the women and children who were consuming in the fire, he also was pained, and he said unto Alma, How can we witness this awful scene? Therefore, let us stretch forth our hands, and exercise the power of God which is in us, and save them from the flames. But Alma said unto him, The Spirit constraineth me that I must not stretch forth mine hand, for behold, the Lord received, and the blood of the innocent shall stand as a witness against them, yea, and cry mightily against them at the last day. Alma 14:10-11. He shall spare the poor and needy, and shall save the souls of the needy. He shall redeem their soul from deceit and violence, and precious shall their blood be in his sight. Psalm 72:13-14. Sometimes innocent women and children become witnesses by shedding their own blood. From the Book of Mormon came a very vivid description of just such an event. And when Amulek saw the pains of the women and children who were consuming in the fire, he also was pained, and he said unto Alma, How can we witness this awful scene? Therefore, let us stretch forth our hands, and exercise the power of God which is in us, and save them from the flames. But Alma said unto him, The Spirit constraineth me that I must not stretch forth mine hand, for behold, the Lord receiveth them up unto himself in glory, and he doth suffer that they may do this thing, or that the people may do this thing unto them, according to the hardness of their hearts, that the judgments which he shall exercise upon them in his wrath may be just. And the blood of the innocent shall stand as a witness against them, yea, and cry mightily against them at the last day. Alma 14:10-11. Among those who also had innocent blood are the prophets of God who have been killed throughout the world's history. In the Book of Mormon the Lord once sent fire and destruction upon the people, so that the blood of the prophets and the saints whom I sent among them might not cry unto me from the ground against them. 3 Nephi 9:11. It was the worst destruction that ever came upon that people. Jesus also warned the Jews of the calamity that was going to befall his generation, and told them the reason why it would happen. Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets, and wise men, and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom he slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. Matt 23:34-36. From the lost books of the Bible comes the story of the death of Zacharias the priest, and the retribution that befell those guilty of his murder. It reads, However, Zacharias was murdered in the entrance of the temple and altar, and about the partition, but the children of Israel knew not when he was killed. Then at the hour of salutation the priests went into the temple, but Zacharias did not according to custom meet them and bless them, yet they still continued waiting for him to salute them, and when they found he did not in a long time come, one of them ventured into the holy place where the altar was, and he saw blood lying upon the ground congealed, when, behold, a voice from heaven said, Zacharias is murdered, and his blood shall not be wiped away, until the revenger of his blood come. The Protevangelion, page 37. The vengeance which befell those guilty of Zacharias's murder is recorded in both the Jerusalem and Babylonish Talmud. The blood of the prophet and priest Zacharias was not wiped away until 94,000 people were slain. The crime of murdering this prophet resulted in 7 evils that day. They murdered a priest, a prophet, and a king. They shed the blood of the innocent. They polluted the court. That day was the Sabbath, and the day of expiation. In our own dispensation, many latter-day saints have died by the hands of murderers and assassins. That blood also cries from the ground for vengeance. Even before Joseph and Hiram Smith were killed, the Lord spoke of destructions that were coming upon all nations, so that the cry of the saints and of the blood of the saints shall cease to come up into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth from the earth to be avenged of their enemies. DC 87:7. Then after Joseph Smith and his brother were killed, the Lord said, "For they killed the prophets, and them that were sent unto them, and they have shed innocent blood, which crieth from the ground against them." DC 136:36. On his way to the Carthage jail, the prophet Joseph Smith said, "I am going like a lamb to the slaughter, but I am calm as a summer's morning. I have a conscience void of offense toward God and toward all men. If they take my life, I shall die an innocent man, and my blood shall cry from the ground for vengeance, and it shall be said of me, he was murdered in cold blood." TPJS, page 379. Many years later in a revelation, the Lord said, "The blood of my servants Joseph and Hiram and of mine apostles and elders, which has been shed for the word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ, cries from the ground for vengeance upon the nation which has shed their blood. But their blood shall speedily be avenged and shall cease to cry unto me, for the hour of God's judgment is fully come, and shall be poured out without measure upon the wicked." Rev. 1880. Brigham Young explained the nature and consequences of shedding the innocent blood of a prophet. Joseph was murdered at sunlight, under the protection of the most noble government that there existed, and that now exists, on our earth. Has his blood been atoned for? No. And why? A martyr's blood to true religion was never atoned for on our earth. No man or nation of men, without the priesthood, has power to make atonement for such sins. The souls of all such, since the days of Jesus, are under the altar and are crying to God day and night, for vengeance. And shall they cry in vain? God forbid. He has promised he will hear them in his own due time, and recompense a righteous reward. Contributor 10:5. The shedding of innocent blood, or the killing of a prophet, can never be completely atoned for because the life taken cannot be returned. The shedding of innocent blood can be classed as one of the worst of all sins, for the prophet Joseph said, "The unpardonable sin is to shed innocent blood, or be accessory thereto." TPJS, page 301. This shows that many apostates, too, have turned against their brethren in the priesthood, and have shed innocent blood or been accessory thereto, and thereby have committed an unpardonable sin. The worst and most horrid example of a people suffering the vengeance of innocent blood were those who were responsible for the death of Christ. The Jews, by shedding the blood of their Messiah, suffered the wrath of God for nearly 2,000 years. They even asked for it. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water, and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this just person, see ye to it." Then answered all the people and said, "His blood be on us, and on our children." Matt 27:24-25. The Jews, thinking to pacify or absolve Pilate, so that he would grant them the privilege of killing Christ, asked for the blood of Christ to be upon them and their children. God took them at their word and granted them their request. Within 40 years the nation of the Jews was destroyed. According to history, over 1 million Jews died within a few days in a battle against the Romans. Their beautiful temple was destroyed, and not one stone remained upon another according to the prophecy of Christ. Those who were left alive were taken to Rome and sold as slaves, and a few were scattered to the winds into many other nations. The Jews lost their national heritage, their priesthood, their genealogy, their priests, and their sacrifices. For nearly 2,000 years this curse has befallen a race of people as an evidence of who Christ really was, and of what a curse can befall a people who are guilty of shedding innocent blood. In these last days, when the blood of the innocent has been shed without retribution, we may witness the destruction and the vengeance of God upon this generation, much the same as it was in the days of Noah. This was the prophecy of Christ concerning his second coming. Matt 24:37. The day is not far when the Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of his people against our generation. He will remove many worldly great men of the earth, and replace them with the weak and simple who are obedient to him. To cleanse this wicked generation that has slain the blood of prophets, priests, and innocent women and children, he will avenge their blood, and thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war. So devastating is this war that there will be 7 women left where only 1 man remains. John the Revelator asked the Lord how long it would be before the righteous blood was avenged. The Lord answered, "It was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled." Rev. 6:11. Thus we see the terrible vengeance that comes upon a nation or people who shed innocent blood. This nation, like so many of those in the past, has much innocent blood upon the land, and the day is not far hence when God shall come out of his hiding place to vex the nations for their crimes and abominations, so that the blood of the innocent will no longer cry for vengeance.